Bitcoin is moving higher. And I was just talking with some people today, and they were surprised that Bitcoin was over $66,000, almost hit $67,000. Part of the reason why they're surprised is because bear markets, people start tuning out and stop paying attention. And that's kind of when they sneak up on you and they turn from bear markets into bull markets. Now, as I've said in other videos, I think last video I was talking about that Bitcoin had kind of lost a lot of the support. It was in a negative downtrend. It still is in a downtrend, right? It still hasn't fully broken out, but it's showing signs that maybe some things might be changing. And I was talking about there's a lot of longs that were built up below that $60,000 level, that if those got swept, right, if market makers decided to drop it and there wasn't enough spot buying to support the higher prices, that you could see that liquidation cascade that could lead us down to mid to lower 50s and potentially lower. Now, that's still possible. A lot of people have been projecting that the bottom will be for Bitcoin September, October, right? That's kind of the standard process for that, the standard kind of mindset around it based upon that 4-year cycle. Now, that could still happen. However, Bitcoin has been showing some strength over the past few weeks. I mean, it did have that big dip down to that $58,000 level, which was kind of below the level it had hit back in February, but it didn't really stay down there for very long and was still in that general range, right, above that 55K. So it kind of held there. So it did that and it didn't get pushed lower. And then a couple things happened that are worth of note. One announcement recently seems like the Clarity Act is getting more positive support and might get pushed through. That can has been kicked down the road for so long. So who knows? But that could be some of the bullish momentum there. And then you also had a factor where the war with Iran ended back in June, and we saw oil prices immediately come down. And when energy prices come down, right, gas gets cheaper, energy gets cheaper, things get cheaper. And I said that, hey, maybe we might see with that war ending and prices coming down that we see inflation not going up, but instead even going stable and going down. Sure enough, we saw inflation come in under of what expectations were. And then you had announcements from the Fed, people talking about that due to that factor, they may be less likely to raise rates. And you can check the prediction markets and everything out there where they're talking about, will the Fed raise rates this year? And so the chances of them raising rates after that had happened decreased. And then that's where we saw a little bit more strength in for Bitcoin. Now, a couple other things are playing out. We're back in war with Iran. It doesn't look great, and so oil prices are going back up. And so you might see more inflation there. And so that could be something where you see more inflation that goes up and the Fed's like, well, maybe we're going to change our minds and maybe raising rates are back on the table. Could happen. We'll see. We still got the big problem of $39 trillion in debt and having to deal with that, and high interest rates with a lot of debt like that makes it a little more complicated and less exciting to have to refinance debt at those higher rates. So we'll see how that plays out. We're getting closer and going into midterms. So we'll also see how that kind of thing plays out, because if there is going to be some sort of crash or correction, now's the time. Now's the time for it to happen, because the last thing you want is that to be the freshest thing on people's minds going into voting. But who knows, right? How much say do the politicians and them have over the markets? I mean, it's a crazy world out there. So those are some factors to consider about what's going on. And then, of course, we have the AI bubble. We have potential public IPOs of some of these large AI companies. So it'll be interesting to see if that has an impact on the stock market, or we see any sort of big dips there that it reverberates through into crypto. The plus side is that Bitcoin and crypto has kind of not been correlated with any of their markets over this past year. In fact, it's kind of done pretty poorly relative to those other markets. And so you have a lot of people that have been investing and putting their money in over there. So the good thing, right? The good thing is that they may not be taking money out of crypto, right? Or their money's already down low because of the corrections in crypto currently. And so they may not, if those markets correct or whatnot, they may not be looking to sell their crypto to fund those positions, right? We may actually have a perfect storm where they are looking to sell those positions, right? Because they're all doing well, they're all-time highs and they're all up. and then moving it into the industry that is liquid and is down, and that could be Bitcoin and crypto. It would be very interesting to see, especially if that gets combined with, again, if the Iran war can end, oil prices can come down officially, and we can see sustained lower prices, and then we can see a reduction in inflation, and then there becomes talk about lowering rates and things like that. That all can present bullish momentum for this market. So where are we at right now? I mean, Bitcoin's looking pretty strong. It's above some key levels. It just punched through some key levels today for the technical charts, and so it's sitting above $66,000, which that's a key level. That was kind of the lower high of that 2021 cycle, where it pushed up to like 64, and so we're above that. Now we want to see it sustain these levels of above 64,000, and then push up above 69,000 and hold that. That could be really, really positive if it can do that and it can sustain above those levels there, and then we might have a real, hey, is the market turning around? And you'll start to know, right? You'll see, if you're following altcoins, you'll see a lot more pops in altcoins, because what happens is when people see that Bitcoin is stable and starting to move up, then they, obviously are more likely to start paying attention, more likely to put liquidity and capital into the markets, and they're more likely to be like, okay, now is the time to start allocating and buying up some of these alts that they think can do well. Something to pay attention to, but also keep in mind, alts are still always risky. They move a lot faster up, and they can move a lot faster down. And again, we're still in the late stages of that bear market, and so it's not officially over. We still potentially have one more correction on the horizon, although it's looking like the chances of that happening is lower. It's not completely ruled out, just based upon the normal numbers of the 4-year cycle. So really cool, really interesting to see. And so if you're paying attention, being patient is important, right? But being aware of where we're at and where we could go so you can make more strategic decisions is very, very powerful. And the other thing that I hit on a little bit before, but that could play out, is that the fact that everyone was saying and expecting September, October for the very bottom of the cycle, like the cycle low, right? And then we might start to grind and move up from there, right? If everyone expects something, eventually, right, that becomes something that everyone is then trading against. And I've seen a lot of influencers out there in the space, analysts out in the space, start talking about they are looking to start entering spot Bitcoin positions now based upon what's currently going on in the market. And so take that as you will. But I know people are starting to say, hey, maybe we won't get that full drawdown into the low 50s, or even, the worst, the bigger one would be into the mid to low 30s. Maybe that's not going to happen. And so if that's becoming increasingly less likely, then they're just doing the math. And what you should do too, of course, this isn't financial advice, is think, okay, right, what are my upsides and what are my downsides to start layering in at some of these levels right now, especially while things are still down, the market is still indecisive, things haven't really started to move. Okay, those are the questions that you need to ask. And of course, it doesn't mean every project, as you start this, as it starts, you kind of don't want to be further out on the risk curve, but as the bull market goes on, you can move a little bit further out because there's a little more liquidity there. People start trying to rotate from larger caps into smaller caps, but just stuff to pay attention to. And you want to dial in the strategy that works best for you, not the strategy that some influencer, whoever it is online, says, or that you think they like, or whatnot. So definitely just figure out what works for you. Do your own research, study the projects, study the different sectors, study different areas, and make strategic choices and decisions. And of course, just one piece of advice is it's always good to have cash on hand, to never go fully in to where you have no dry powder, and to also make it to where you consistently are taking profits, so you replenish your cash stores as you go through the market. So again, you always have cash on hand, and you're more nimble and mobile with your positions in the market. And of course, just learn the fundamentals, learn those things, very, very important for this. So cool to see this. I'm excited to see what is going to come from this. I mean, it's been a crazy year. Not as crazy as I would have hoped it was, but it's been a crazy year. And I think, while a lot of people have written crypto off, I think there's still a ton of potential for it in the future, as we're seeing stuff with Clarity Act, more companies, businesses investing in this and all of that. So really interesting to see. And I think it's just going to continue to play a role. I just saw that more and more of these platforms are giving access to, they have MCP servers so that your agents can basically trade for you on the platform. I think for the average person in crypto, That's not the best idea at first, but it's something that the average person in crypto should start learning how to do, right? And learning that tool, because of course, then you become not the average person in crypto and you become more experienced. And there's a lot of cool things that you can do with that, and potentials and possibilities as that infrastructure gets built out more and more in the space. So that's something to look forward to and to look at for this cycle. But it's definitely not something that you go and you fully commit to and you YOLO unless you have the knowledge and experience and risk awareness in place for that, because it can be a real quick way to get hacked, to lose a lot of money, make a lot of mistakes and all of that. So just be careful with that, but also it's something that's going to be exciting. And I think it's going to be an evolution of the space, and it's going to be a big driver for growth and opportunities in the space over the next few years for sure, as more and more people become more AI aware, more and more people start getting agentic tools, and they become simpler and easier to use and deploy. I think it becomes better and better. And so with that said, if you want to learn more about AI and how you can start incorporating this into your business, into your life, grab a copy of my book or join the Arsenal below. I'm gonna have more lessons of the Arsenal coming out this month and next month on using AI to analyze crypto and things like that. So definitely stuff that you want to pay attention to and you want to learn. Again, education is key. Educate yourself first, spend the time, spend the money, spend whatever it takes in order to get educated so you can make better decisions and you can more manage the chaos and all the nuance and craziness in the market. So anyways, that is it for this one. Subscribe and follow along for more. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.